Do good work is not a label, but a way of living. It is the constant and diligent effort to achieve a new level of excellence in one's own life. It is the hidden inner beauty behind the struggle to achieve excellence. It's not perfect, but imperfect. It is the effort, discipline, and focus that often goes unnoticed. The goal of Do Good Work is to highlight that drive. The guests I have on this show emulate this drive in their own special way. You'll be able to apply new ideas into your own life by learning from them. We will also have one-on-one episodes with me where we'll dive into my own experience with entrepreneurship and leadership. Every episode is designed to provide you with ideas that you can apply and grow in excellence in all areas of your life, business, and career. Today I have on the show Dan Golden. Dan is a veteran digital marketing executive, entrepreneur, and business innovator. He's the president and co-founder of the Chicago-based digital agency BFO, and they've been awarded Ad Age's #1 Best Place to Work and is 6 times Inc. 5000 honoree, as well as recognition for client work in the U.S. Search Awards, Landy Awards, and the U.S. Drum Search Awards. He's been featured on Forbes, Huffington Post, Inc. magazine, and Mashable, and he speaks regularly at conferences like ANA, Marketing Futures, Conscious Capitalism, PubCon, HeroConf, and Inbound, and is an adjunct lecturer on digital marketing at DePaul University and a guest lecturer at Northwestern University. He's on the mission to spread love, humor, and prosperity. Sweet. So Dan, thanks for being on, man.
Thanks for having me, sir.
So Dan, in our initial conversation and our, getting to know you, you're kind of going at lengths for very specific purposes and intentions behind your business. If it's giving your team or employees a day off for election, if it's focusing on being a conscious consumer, if it's with your process as a B, working towards being a B certified company.
Almost, I hope.
Almost. But what's the intentions behind that? How are you structuring everything to have kind of like a mission-driven purpose in the company?
Great question. As I look at myself and my purpose in the world and the things that I care about and want to impact and influence for the better, there's a pretty, I know a lot of people that do amazing lawyers advocating for people in need, people whose day job is working for a nonprofit and day in and day out. Like for them, doing good is like 9 to 5 or 9 to, most of them it's like 8 to 8, right? People working really hard doing that stuff. And so on the flip side, my professional life, I'm a digital marketing nerd and I make businesses money, and I wanted to tie those two things together as much as possible. That's what's at the root of all of it, right? Is giving a damn and wanting to do things the right way and walking the walk. And there, I think, are a lot of businesses that have those intentions in their mind, but it's really, there's a lot of work to put.
The two, right?
Yeah. And how do you put it in practice, and how do you make sure your people at your company believe in it and also give a damn, right? Have a higher purpose.
So how did you bridge the gap? Because I know that there's like an internal debate, I suppose, amongst founders, and depending on how they want to tie impact, and we'll define impact in a bit, how to tie impact into their company. If it's the actual output of the production, the widgets, the services has a direct bottom line or, social impact specified tied attached to it,
Yep.
Or you somehow through the quote unquote offset of the impact that you're creating through the services or through your team, like either the direct or indirect. So how did you bridge that gap with your company?
Yeah. So I think it's twofold. And look, we've tried, we've probably tried everything, failed at many, and are figuring it out in other ways, right? This is a work in progress. And as some people externally want to like compare companies, it's a journey, right? We're trying to be a more conscious business. We're trying to do things better. And that means so many different things, from like our suppliers to how we treat our employees to offsetting the amount of travel and all this stuff. Like there's so many different ways that businesses have an impact, both positively and negatively. So it's I just want to say, like, we're just working at it, right? And we're trying to
Yeah.
get better and smarter about how we do it. And luckily, there's a number of movements out there of like-minded businesses that have kind of helped us along the way, right? We started out small giants.
Mhm.
My co-founder, read the book and met some leaders in that community, and that got us on the path early on, and to conscious capitalism and all the other like
Mhm.
offshoots of that. There's an amazing community, and the piece that I am. There's a great event that I would plug for next week with Conscious Capitalism Chicago. It'll probably be online with David Gartner from the Motley Fool,
Uh-huh.
and this isn't like you're a hippy dippy business or you're a capitalist. Like, these companies that follow these principles make more money and have longer sustainable growth,
Mhm.
and so it's not like it's not a choice of like being a conscious business that's doing good things, or you could make money, right? Like,
It's tying
this
in
helps
both.
that.
Yeah. And I'm really, well, I want to dive into that specifically, but just to share, like, I'm really never on either one extreme or another extreme. It's always I'm in the like center in regards to how we can tie both together and not making it if or scenario, making it how can we make it both a and scenario. We can do the right things, we can empower people, and we're going to make profits to do that and have to do it sustainably. With that specifically, how do you define impact? And that can be, we talked about indirect, direct. How do you define impact, and how did you integrate some of those initial conversations with your co-founder and the team to integrate some sustainable practices in the business?
Great question. We I think unconscious, like unintentionally and maybe intentionally, but just without having all the words and language around it, like,
Mhm.
we generally recruited like-minded people. So for us, I don't think we had to like have a big cultural shift, or like we were this like crazy, mean company who did everything wrong, and we burned coal to keep our office like,
Yeah.
and then suddenly we discovered it. So it was relatively easy to kind of identify things that we all kind of rallied around. And
Mhm.
there's some things where where there's like a company cause, or something that like is inherent to the company and the people in it.
Mhm.
And we have some of that. We have a great relationship with this organization in Chicago, Aspire, and um, it's been fulfilling for a lot of folks on our team to be like that involved.
Mhm.
But in terms of what people care about, everybody has something different they care about, right?
Yeah.
Like, the unfortunate situation of like having a loved one die of something, like there's an organization for that we're all raising money for, right?
Mhm.
And so trying to balance some of that, and encouraging people to like, we give volunteer days off and like applaud and nudge and really push our people to take time off to do good things that are fulfilling for them. Um,
It's reinforcing those positive actions almost. And I love your insight here, but like taking it back to a 30,000 foot view, and even if you're a listener here, you're wanting to figure out how can I create sustainable practices, or how do I actually integrate this into my business? And I think looking at your business as a whole, what are the things that you care about or the leadership team cares about, right? Like with you and your co-founder, that like-minded individuals. And you don't have to solve every single problem, but at least major themes that are within, the company and the missions. And then looking at, I suppose, the different habits within the company, if it's like your travel schedule, your employees teamwork schedule, volunteer hours, finding little ways that you can integrate that feeds the main purpose. And I think it just has to be as simple as that, right? Awareness and plugging in the habits. Are you seeing
yeah,
any gaps? That's
yeah, that and measurement.
Mhm.
That's one thing. Like, we in our best year, or one of our best years of growth, I think it was 2015. We realized that year that like our community of involvement, like, it totally fell off the map. Like, we
Mhm.
sucked. We talked a good game. We realized we were like, we kind of stopped doing that, and that kind of fell. And so we started measuring it in our EOS dashboard when we're looking at company performance. and like utilization rates and revenue and pipeline and all the other stuff you need to do to run a business. We just added a handful of things like how many VTO days have we actually used, and so we're
Mm.
like, well, we sucked at that Q1. Let's just mention it 3 times in our next company meetings, giving a shout out to the people that did something and encouraging others to take the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went way up. Part of it is just having attention with this stuff and having intention with this stuff.
And I like that you mentioned the focus and the intention. And then even going at lengths, I mean, you're right now in the process to becoming or working to become B certified. Like it's a pretty strenuous process. Can you walk us through the decisions to actually go to that length and some of the, the insights that you've gotten by taking that journey?
Yeah. I mean, it's walking the walk. There's so much greenwashing out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And conscious consumers are smarter than that. I equate it to the like plastic water bottle
Mm-hmm.
that is using like 20% less plastic and has like a little leaf on the bottle. And I'm like, okay, that's a little bit better, but your product is inherently like bad for the world to put water in bottles and ship them places from Fiji to
Yeah.
here. Like that uses more energy that can't be good. Uh, so that's, I like that it's hard. I like that there's, that they actually look at things and ask questions. And I'm hoping by the time this podcast comes out that we're through it, but I don't want to assume because it's, they make you walk the walk, and it's a really tough business. I've through Conscious Capitalism CEO summits, I've got to spend some time with Jay Cohen, who founded the B Labs and that movement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really hard thing to do, right? Like, how many different opportunities is there for a brand to like sign up for something and pay $100 and have a badge that looks like they're awesome on their website, right?
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff is really easy. Becoming a B Corp means something.
Yeah.
And so, I want to do meaningful things. And, I could tell you whatever on a podcast to make myself sound amazing, but like, it's a lot of people do that and don't always do the work. Speaking of which,
Yeah.
As an owner and leader of a company, I get to take a lot of credit for stuff, but most of this is people on my team.
Yeah.
Julia, our director of humans and culture, my co-founder, Steve, Beth, Fred, like all these, I just want to be clear, but that's part of it,
Yeah.
is
We
creating
can't
space for people to who are like-minded to make an impact.
create the space, facilitate it. But yeah, there's nothing that's worth doing that you can do alone. Most of the time, it has to be a we component to it. And I appreciate that humility and that openness to highlight the team. And I think,
And I also suck at execution. So I when I take those personality tests, like I certainly have my strengths, and there's the flip side of those strengths that it's good to have a great team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I love that, man. And I want to circle back because we talked about the team, we talked about the impact. Let's hit about the profits. And you mentioned earlier that it was almost formulaic, that if you focus on these things specifically that actually are good for the environment, not just for the sake of doing it to show off, but actually because you mean it, you're kind of breeding a culture within the team. And I believe that within that team, they'll either be happier or they'll be more enthusiastic about the work they do. That supports everything from customer relationships to retention rates to, customer satisfaction rates. But I want to hear from your experience and share with our audience, what are some of the key insights that you've seen and that, our listeners can take away from walking the walk in regards to keeping a sustainable business or practice and continuing to grow that?
So there's a couple of ways to think about it. One is, we want to do businesses with companies that give a damn. And so, I know that I know what motivates our team, and we want to. That's one way that we can fulfill that, that mission of business being a force for good. That's not like only BFO's mission. That's strong language. I'm influenced from conscious capitalism community, right? So that's one way, is like walking the walk. You get exposure and opportunities to work with brands that are making an impact and doing good things. And the other, For me, it's just learning. Like for the first like 8 years of my career, I don't know, I'm dating myself, I don't know how long, but like I went to a ton of digital marketing conferences, and I talked to other agency people about search marketing, and talked about cocktails and link building, and like that focus.
Yeah.
And when I started going to conscious capitalism conferences, the CEO summit, where I'm like meeting leaders of just so many different types of companies,
Mm-hmm.
solving big things in different ways, like many far larger than my little marketing agency.
Mm-hmm.
Just great. I get great ideas and inspiration from exposing ourselves to that community.
It's expanding in different ways, right? Internal, externals, also to the market itself. And I do want to hit upon it because you said a little marketing age. I mean, you guys are growing pretty substantial, which is pretty awesome to hear. But I I love to get now a little bit more on the tactical side and learn from you, and having you here on a rare occasion on the podcast. I'd love to know, where you see search happening right now for consumers. Because I mean, we're moving to the Alexas, we're moving to the Siris, we're moving to voice
Yeah,
AI and all that. So I want to hear a little bit more, like, what are you seeing right now in regards to the future of search?
great. It is, the there's a lot of wait. I'm gonna do an edit one.
Okay. All right, just make sure that we edit this out.
All right. So the future of search is here today,
Mm,
and part of that, part of like where it's going, whether we talk about voice or the new devices or visual search, if you look at Google Lens,
mhm,
search is going to be endemic to just about every device and platform, one way or
mhm,
another, right? And so, certainly with virtual assistants, and I mean everybody wearing Apple headsets, like search isn't something you go do. Search is built in, is how you navigate things, whether it's
mm.
voice input, text input, visual input. um, and so where is it going in the future? I actually think augmented reality, if you think about Google or any of these platforms' ability to index things in the real world,
Mhm.
uh,
Oh, that's scary
in
now, huh?
yeah, it's but where I think it's, so that's where I think it's going. How long between here and there? Some of that exists today,
Yeah.
right? You can already ask your wristwatch, like Star Trek is here. Like it's some of the stuff today is pretty cool, and some of it's still really immature, right? Google Lens is going to be amazing. Right now, the AI just isn't great. Like it can't really point to things and like buy it. You need to be looking at a UPC code, or
Mhm.
but it'll get there. As marketers, what do you do with it, right? And that's
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to solve right now. And the good news is, in a lot of cases, good SEO today, good voice search SEO is good SEO today, right?
Mm.
Structuring rich data, that's one thing. Like people are less going to be clicking on websites less. The devices are different. Certainly voice response, like someone's not looking for a website, they want an answer or they want an
Yeah.
action. So
Mm.
to me, the future search is answers and action. Uh, you
Interesting.
know,
So answers like to a query or an action based on what's the trigger off the action, the
yeah.
information?
No, the trigger can be. This is where like brands come in,
Mhm.
right? The action is it's really voice interface, and whether traditionally that's a virtual assistant AI thing versus search,
Mhm.
it's much more in this camp. But from a user perspective, they're searching, they're asking, right? It's still just this conversational interface.
Yeah.
And so action is really like, what would you want a consumer to perform with your brand, right? If you're a
Huh.
restaurant, your goal isn't to get people to your website, it's to get people to your restaurant,
Yeah.
right? So, and that exists today either through Google Duplex, where a machine robot, 60% of the businesses in the US that take reservations don't have an online booking engine. So
Mm.
Google created a bot that will call restaurants, ask about available times, and add it to your calendar from like a text or voice input.
Wow.
Google Assistant. That's not the future. That's today.
That's happening right now.
That's happening right now. So certainly brands with scale, think about what kind of apps and functionality and actions, whether it's ordering a pizza, reordering a pizza, right? A lot of this stuff is going to be more towards loyal customers versus,
Mhm.
new customers. Um, anyway, you asked. I could talk about this for hours, but it's certainly getting more fragmented, and search is less about keywords and web pages with a lot of keywords. It's still important, but we've come a long way from there.
No, I love that you mentioned that some of the actions that we can take today is obviously the good SEO, good ranking, good rich data. What are some of the other things that we could like take advantage or prepare for in our businesses as this evolves to become the new normal, like with not just the technology, but my glasses will probably one day be smarter, and like everything that I'm doing is going to be more augmented, indexed, and I like the fact that you've made it simple that it's either an action or an information. So what are some of the things that our businesses can do today and our listeners can apply? Maybe small actions, but something that we can look towards today to see some of the things in the future be prepared.
Yeah. So many websites do this already, but schema is, and this is nerd talk here, but
Yeah.
It's like the language of search engines. It is making your information more accessible. Is and more more trusted is gonna win, and that's a challenge for many brands that think about search in terms of like clicks to my website.
Yeah.
When you rich result over this hit in 2019 that more than half of the searches result in 0 clicks. Yes, it's more than that was a study by Jumpshot.
Wow.
And so brands are often positioning content out of the search. It's a great user experience.
Yeah.
People, they want less friction, and that's what users want, but it means your brand is living outside of the walls of your website even more. And so, part of the, so search is kind of the glue there of positioning your content so Google can understand it and index it, whether it's, a recipe or an event or a class, anything that is an object needs to be accessible and communicated. And marketers also need to think about, like, that means this information doesn't always live on our site.
That's interesting. So how did you bridge the gap between the trust and schema and making our content or information more accessible? Is the trust just showing up to our customers in different areas where they're looking for it, or how? Because you mentioned trust building.
Yeah. So trust building in the eye of search engines is authority. One way to do that is with inbound links, and I have a whole other conversation about doing links the right way and not, but that's, so there's that. And then the structured data is not something I invented. It's a tool that Google has and encourages websites to use, but it's constantly changing. And that's, that's a lot of what we consult and help companies implement that and make sure their data is structured.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. Well, Dan, I really do appreciate it. I think we can go in so many directions talking about search, structured data, links. When it comes to sharing information to our listeners in regards to how they can learn more about you, how they can learn more about being a conscious consumer or capitalist, what's the best way for people to go?
All right. Well, I'll just make a bunch of shout outs here, and I'm sure we could put it in the link below.
Yep.
Right? Okay. I'm quoting. It's right down there. So in terms of getting in touch with me, I can be found online. It's not just a clever name. You can find me on LinkedIn. Please mention the podcast, the Golden Dan on Twitter. And I have a very complex email address, dan@befoundonline.com. So happy to make introductions to anybody. If you're drinking the Kool-Aid that I'm brewing here, there's a lot of great organizations and people smarter than me to introduce you to these concepts and communities. So certainly recommend exploring the links below, and oftentimes an introduction to an event or again, happy to welcome anybody into these communities that have welcomed me, and that's a great way to get your business moving in the right direction.
Awesome, Dan. I really appreciate the time, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.